Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jo Delamore, and I'm zooming in today from the traditional homelands of the Adena mound building people and the homelands of the Shawnee people in southeast rural Ohio on Turtle Island in the United States. I'm delighted to welcome you today on behalf of the Work That Reconnects Network. Thank you for joining us for the webinar and Conversation Cafe program, where we provide a wide range of rich, educational, and supportive online events for our global Work That Reconnects community. Our intention is to strengthen the Work That Reconnects community while reaching beyond its current edges to weave deeper connections with others who are contributing to the great turning in diverse and complementary ways. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have this webinar today to kind of strengthen and connect beyond the Work That Reconnects community with this beautiful group of people from the transition movement. So today we're really excited to dive into this conversation with three leaders from the transition movement: Don Hall, Anaí Beatriz Pacheco, and Martina Francesca are all part of the team for Transition Network International. They each bring a wealth of knowledge and perspective and experience in supporting individuals and communities around the world through radical transition in the inner dimensions of honoring our grief and gratitude, understanding the psychology of change, shifting paradigms, discovering purpose, transforming culture, and cultivating inner resilience, as well as the outer dimensions of working collaboratively to grow more just and regenerative communities by revitalizing local food systems, strengthening local economies, and reducing dependence on fossil fuels. I'm really grateful to each of them for the work they're doing in the world and for coming together today to share it with the Work That Reconnects Network community. I want to just note that English is not the mother tongue for either Anaí or Martina. They both speak it very well, but they've asked me to just mention this so that we can all be a little bit patient and attentive as they share. And now I'm very happy to pass it over to Anaí to lead us in a grounding.
Thank you, Jo. Greetings to all from the south of Chile, from Mapuche land. Very happy to be here with all of you in this sister organization's connection. I was asked to start with a grounding, and I will invite us to take our hands in front of our eyes. Breathe deeply and allow your hands to touch your side. And just rest in this connection with the breath and the skin, the tones of the skin. Maybe you can move them a little bit and keep breathing and looking. These alive beings, part of your system, of the ecosystem of this body. And sometimes one hand is more closer to your heart than the other. Unexplainable. Unexplainable. Just allow this to be there and watch it happening inside of you. And maybe you can see them differently, or you can feel them differently, or not. Just watch that. I invite us to open our awareness to this similarity and difference between our hands and probably the similarity and difference between our cultures, between our individualities, between our internal parts and the members of our teams, between the people in this call. And just watch that. We're so similar and so different at the same time. And with this awareness, I invite them, yeah, to touch each other hand and embrace and allow whatever feeling that comes. Maybe you can close your eyes and sense the connection. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you so much, Joe, for the work that reconnects work and for this invitation. I give it back the center.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you, Nai. We're going to welcome Don and Martina into the circle as well and have a little time to get to know each of you. So, Don, we're going to go with you first, and you have a few moments to introduce yourself and let us get to know you.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting us to be here. Wonderful to be with everyone. Some familiar faces I haven't seen in a while. Lots of new people. I'm Don Hall. Live in Boulder, Colorado, in the U.S., and currently serve as training coordinator for Transition Network International. My journey with activism began when I was in college, working first with the Students for a Free Tibet and getting involved with the anti-war and anti-globalization movements of that time. Um, but I always felt that something was kind of missing for me in that uh, kind of political activism that was always in opposition, always uh, responding to what was happening in the world, dealing more with symptoms than root causes, and often seeing it driven by a lot of guilt and fear and anger, which, are legitimate emotions. And we do need to do that work of resistance, of course, maybe now more than ever. But looking for a different kind of activism and went to Naropa University and did a master's program in environmental leadership. And that's where I first came across the Work That Reconnects. We had a 3-day workshop with Joanna Macy herself, which was a wonderful and profound experience. Kind of stumbled across the transition towns movement just as it was getting started here in the US and became a student of permaculture. And those three things kind of wove together with me to show this kind of other type of activism, regenerative activism, which I've been doing wholeheartedly for the last almost 2 decades now. So that's a little bit about me.
Beautiful. Thank you and welcome, Don. Great. Let's go with Anaí next.
Yeah, thanks, Don. I'm happy to be together walking since some years from the north and the south, being able to be as friends and equals. So I want to share something that was very important in a moment of my life, in my career, connected with the work that reconnects. Because from earlier, it's also from 16 years old, I started the spiritual path, the human development path, became psychologist, training different things. And when I was like 15 years working already, giving workshops in different places, living in India and so on, like nomad, digital nomad being, there was a moment that I felt that just meditate, do biodanza, psychotherapy was not enough with the reality we were having on the world. And then my life took like a shift, like there were like 6 years of shift. And I get to know permaculture and Gaia education and the eco village movement and transition movement. But I was missing the bridge between the psychotherapy and the spirituality that I had in my life with the ecological, sustainable regeneration world. And for me, it was crucial to get to know Joanna and her work and the work that reconnects because it gave me the language to speak with people that were not psychologists, were not meditators, were not doing workshops on that things. And this is super important for me, like the way to connect spirituality with activism. And today I feel I am a sacred activist doing the work on the world and at the same time inside. And this is a beautiful day to speak about that. So I will stop there and give the space to Martina.
Beautiful. Welcome, welcome. Yay.
So, hello everyone. My name is Martina. I'm from Italy, and I'm very happy to be with you tonight or today, depending on the place in the world where you are right now. So yeah, just a couple of words about me. So I came in contact with the Transition Town movement in 2011 or 12. At the moment, I was studying at the university, but the subject that I was studying was becoming so distant from the idea of the world that I believed in, that I couldn't just continue in that way. So I got in contact with the idea of transition, and it was like a sort of revelation at the time. And then I came across the Italian hub of the Transition Town movement and become involved with it, with permaculture, with local initiatives, etc. And I have to say that that experience was one of the most important in my life because I learned and understood so many things that are still alive for me today. And one of the greatest discoveries that I made through transition was the importance of group facilitation and participatory processes. So the idea that we need to pay attention not only to what we do in transition, but also to how we do things, how we make decisions, how we transform conflict, how we involve local communities in decision making, etc. So this is one like super huge discovery in my life. Another one was the idea of inner transition. So the idea that inner and outer change are linked, and we will talk about it later. And another huge discovery was the work that reconnects and deep ecology in general. And for me, they were like the foundation and the framework for everything else, like answering the question, why are we doing all the transition things? So for me, it was like a very important discovery. And I was lucky enough to meet Joanna Macy in a training in the UK in 2013 or something like that. And after that, the work that reconnects has been part of my practice, of my activities, and all the work that I do today. So this is the experiences that bring me here tonight, and I hope to share something else with you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So exciting to have you all here and to be able to like bring your voices together and your intelligence together in this way. And now we're going to dig a little deeper and learn a little bit more about specifically what you've been doing within the transition movement and how you've experienced this connection between Work That Reconnects and transition weaving together. And I know you each have your own kind of channels that's been working. So we can just go right back around the circle again, started with Dawn again.
Yeah, so I realize maybe not all of you are deeply familiar with the Transition Towns movement. So I'm going to give a little context here. It actually really didn't start out to be a movement. It started out as one community trying to figure out how to transition beyond fossil fuels to local resiliency. That happened in the town of Totnes in southwest England. And they did lots of amazing things. They um, really worked on growing their local food system by supporting local farmers and people growing at least some of their own food. They strengthened their local economy by promoting local independent businesses and creating a local community currency called the Totnes Pound. They created a community-owned renewable energy company and worked to reduce their dependence on fossil fuels in many different ways. And their approach was so successful and engaged so much of the wider community that it kind of naturally spread to other towns and cities nearby in England and started popping up in other places like Australia. Um, and mimicking the approach of Transition Town Totnes. And then in 2008, Rob Hopkins, a former permaculture teacher who did a webinar for the Work That Reconnects Network just last week about his latest work on, inspiring positive visions of the future. He wrote a book called The Transition Handbook, kind of summarizing the experience of Transition Town Totnes and teaching other people how to follow their lead. And the movement kind of exploded from there. That was in 2008. And I'm actually going to put up a map of the transition movement now. As you can see, there's 950 different local groups listed on Transition Network International's global map. About 21 regional and national hubs that help to support those groups, and also a large community of transition trainers from all over the world that includes myself and Anahi and Martina. So a big part of transition is, weaving all these groups together to show a bigger picture of how really radical, holistic, bottom-up change is possible around the world. But as we've said from the very beginning, there's no one right way to do transition. That transition needs to look different in every place that it goes, responding to the needs, opportunities, and interests of the local community. And that every transition initiative is independent. It's started by the people who live there, and it's free to organize however it sees best. So, that begs the question, what brings all these initiatives together, into a single movement if they're all so different and dependent on local context? One of those things is the transition principles that you see here, things like We respect resource limits and create resilience. We promote inclusivity and social justice. We're part of an experimental learning network. We freely share ideas and power. We foster positive visioning and creativity. Also, very similar to the work that reconnects, we see that we're in the midst of a great unraveling of the industrial growth society and trying to move to a more life-sustaining society where the principles of nature and life and spirit are at the center as organizing principles for our society. So all those things are the things that kind of bind this movement together. Also, importantly, we do have a transition model. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to use it, but it is some helpful guidelines if people don't know what to do. And in describing what has seemed to work in a lot of different places over the past 20 years of this movement. So one of those models, there's kind of two parts to this, is a kind of linear, time-based model called the 5 stages of transition that begin with forming a group, starting to do awareness raising activities, educational programs, offering workshops in sustainable living skills that we call the Great Reskilling, and having discussions about what are the greatest challenges that we're facing here locally as a community, as well as what are some of the most promising solutions that have been developed that we could adopt here and adapt to our local context. And then from there, really sensing what the community is most excited about working on and where the most potential is. And that brings us from the first stage of starting out to the second stage of deepening, where we start to initiate practical projects that have a real impact on people's lives and build resilience for the future. And by doing that, we show some kind of proof of concept that these aren't just beautiful ideas, but they can actually work in reality and make a real difference. And from that, we gain some kind of credibility that can be used to reach out broader beyond the choir in this third stage of connecting, to tap into all different aspects of the community, the local government, the business community, cultural institutions, universities, schools, very collaborative approach of bringing everybody together and trying to weave into a movement of, what we want to see in our community in the future. And that can bring in the kind of resources and support that's needed to do the really big kind of systems changing work that happens in the building stage. And if we can do that all well, we might dare to dream that we're able to bring about a different kind of future for our community, but also for the world. By linking all these successful initiatives together, we can show a credible alternative to the status quo, which is so badly needed right now. I know I'm short on time here, but just very briefly, I also wanted to show the second part of this model, which is kind of more holistic. These are what are called the 7 essential ingredients of transition, the things that we need to pay attention to at every stage in the process. And it very much includes this component called the inner transition, which I think is a real link and bridge with the work that reconnects. that all of this depends on who we are as individuals. Can we be the leaders that our communities in the world need us to be? And the last thing I will show you is this picture that I love from 2008 of Rob Hopkins, the founder of the Transition Towns movement, and Joanna Macy at Findhorn conference that year. And I think this is a beautiful symbol of how our two movements could be, as brother and sister kin. Um, so I'll stop there and pass it to Anahi.
Wow, that is so perfect. I love it. Before Anna starts, I just want to just like, yay, let's hug in that in that deep embrace. It's so wonderful. And I did pop a couple links in the chat there, a link to the webinar we just did and a link to Transition Network International. Great. Anaí, let's move on.
Thank you, Dawn. And heart is touched by seeing Joanna there with Rob and in this place that gave birth to some important movements as Gaia Education and the Global Eco-Village Network that is somehow sister organizations dreaming the same. And one of the big dreams I had had since long is how to weave together and act together so we have more impact. And we were just sharing with Joe and Martina and Don before starting. So I want to honor also my lineage before I arrived to the movement to the international scale in 2019. Claire Milne was holding this role of inner transition in the international scale. And before that, Sophie Banks and others before, and groups of beings, many of them women, were holding the voice of the inner transition in the movement. My piece of work was when the power from the UK charity was distributed into the movement, and we start experimenting with this shared governance system that is an amazing social experiment of distribution of power that resonates very much with my heart. And I have seen it popping up in many places. And I think we have a lot to learn as humanity on how to distribute power and work with these shared governance systems. And in this shared governance, I was invited to a couple of roles. I was elected to another as Hubslink. I was helping in the training circle before Dawn arrived. And from my background, I say I cannot be sitting in this circle of municipalities in transition training and hubs without a circle of inner transition. So with a group of 9 beings of the movement from different countries, we start meeting and exploring what could become an inner transition circle in international scale. And slowly, something was starting to build up. We have been celebrating solstice, equinox, moons, full moons, new moon, and creating a community of practice aware of a huge diversity. And this has been one of the challenges. Like our cultures relate with the inner in such different ways that from a global scale, we need to really unlearn to be able to connect and use languages that are many times different to what we had born. And not only that, what we learn through time is that on one side, this inner world has not been very honored by our culture the last 200 years, more than 1,000 years. So many of us or just don't know because we were not taught, or we have wounds from the past because the people that were connected suffer a lot in different moments of our history. So these are unconscious wounds or conscious wounds in the culture, in our unconscious mind. So many beings are or just don't know or a bit afraid to connect. So this is a big aspect of the healing and the bringing it back to the center of the table. And as Don was saying, it's not really possible to transform something outside in the world if we are not also transforming within. So somehow there was like a duality between the inner and the outer that has been a challenge and also a learning, because our minds are very trained in dualistic minds. So we believe that inner and outer are two different things. And then we say, okay, there are these inner people and there's outer people, and they are not the same people doing different things. And I think this is the meta level that we are willing to bring today in this shift from inner transition circle to cultural transformation circle, because the same word of inner was sometimes dividing us, and we wanted to go to a meta level that integrated as a cultural transformation, because all of us were born somehow in the old paradigms, individualistic, capitalistic, and we are the generations that are doing the big shift. But for that, we need to transform, and that is not always easy. So the invitation is to once and again look inside when I am replicating the old paradigms, and how can I recognize, and in my connection with my colleagues and my groups and my communities, how can we help each other to recognize when we're replicating the old paradigms, and how we could transform into a culture that takes care of life, a culture that collaborates and go out of competition, because it's so automatic. Our egos, competition, fear, money, all these things are there. So coming back also to the first words of Don, if I am aware of my emotions, if I can communicate with myself and then with other what I am feeling, what I am thinking, and then in the interconnection with the other, we can do something with this. There, change is possible. This is what I have learned from inner transition. And maybe the last moments, the last words, is to share with you that even though we see we're facing such difficult times, that pain is alive in many places of the world, anxiety is there. We have learned that if we have fun doing things together, we do it more and we have more success. So what we are doing today in the cultural transformation circle is to play how we can transform. And if you can share, if you can help me sharing this link of the cultural transformation game, inviting all to connect with us and come to play, what we have experienced is this quality of presence, of togetherness, of listening, deep listening, of certain cultural concept. We choose a cultural concept and go in rounds in deep listening. The quality of presence opens a magic and a mystery. And we are in a moment that a culture is dying, or many cultures are dying, and a new humanity is being born from the ashes of the old. But the mind that created the problem is not the mind that will create the solution. So what we invite through the game is to stop thinking and allow through us to the new to emerge. So this cultural transformation game is to create spaces as birth tunnels to the new humanity to emerge in different places around. So I'm happy to play with you. Just connect with us. You will also have in the chat the connection to the virtual platform, so you can stay connected with us. And I give back the stick to the center. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Beautiful. I'm really looking forward to exploring that game, and just like the depth of the work that you all have been doing is so impressive and so inspiring. Thank you. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Martina.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to add something about how we can somehow integrate or combine maybe the work that reconnects with the transition ideas. And of course, as Anahi was saying, this is a cultural transformation that will look different in different parts of the world. So this is my perspective, in my experience, that coming from from the Southern European perspective. So just take what is useful for you. But as I was saying at the beginning, for me, the work that reconnects and the transition town movement have been interconnected, like since the beginning. And I've seen and experienced and practiced like two ways of integrating the two movements, let's say. So the first one has to do with developing a personal practice of grounding, of inner transformation, a sort of spiritual practice in a way. Because as activists, facilitators, people that are immersed in this social and cultural change, in the different ways that we do it, I think it is really important to have this kind of grounding in why we are doing the work that we are doing. And I think that the work that reconnects has this quality of grounding ourselves in something that is bigger than the single person or the single individual. It can help us to sustain a long-term effort, to help us get through the moments of discouragement, crisis, pain, etc., and also to connect with other people that are on the same journey as us. So it is something that is really like a very important resource that we can tap into in our daily activities and in our daily life. And as Anna was saying before, it is like a inner work or inner change that also is connected with the outer dimension. So it's not like oh, we need to change ourselves before starting to do something in the world. No, they go hand in hand. And for me, the work that reconnects really helped in widening my perspective of the world, like widening my perception of myself, etc. So I think this is like a very important dimension, and how the two movements somehow can integrate. But there is also another way in my experience, and it is maybe more in the external dimension of change, meaning the projects or the activities that we carry out in our communities, etc. We can view transition as a possibility for the going forth step of the spiral, for example. And we can also integrate this awareness of deep ecology in our activities. So, for example, we can ask ourselves, how can we design education systems, food supply chains, institutions, or whatever we want to to design in a way that is beneficial for the whole web of life. For example, we can use this deep ecology awareness as a sort of compass for the projects that we undertake as transition initiatives. So how can we balance the benefits for the human beings? Because of course we know that we are facing lots of inequalities and social issues. but how can we make sure that our project can also be beneficial for whole ecosystems and non-human beings? So this is like a sort of exercise in imagination, and trying to put into practice this principle and idea that we are like widening circles, right? And we can somehow act and design activities and projects with this larger identity that we can developed through the work that reconnects. And here there are many approaches that can help us: the permaculture, systems thinking, and many others. And one interesting idea that I would like to share with you in this sense is again like a sort of exercise in imagination. In expanding the idea of participation, because when we talk about involving local communities in the ecological and social transition, we can keep in mind that local communities are made of human beings, but also other beings like animals, plants, or ecosystems. So maybe we can ask ourselves the question: how can we find a place for those non-human beings in the decision-making processes, in the decisions that affect also the ecosystems, etc. And for example, there are many answers to this question. So, for example, you can look to the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, in which the idea is basically that instead of thinking of nature as a property, we can think of nature as an entity that has rights. So the question is, how can we design a law system or a justice system that can protect the rights of this entity, which is not just a property that human beings can exploit? And this is very interesting because the idea behind that is that nature can be an entity with rights, not just an object, not a passive thing. And another type of experience and research that I would like to mention is a sort of intersection between deep ecology and democratic innovation and participatory processes in general. So there are many experiences and experiments that try to bring the voice of non-human beings in participatory processes, in decision-making processes, in citizens' assemblies, etc. And again, with this idea, how can we have a relationship with the beings that are part of our communities, just beyond exploiting them, but making them part of like this sort of decision-making process. And just as a last sentence, there are also practices in the work that reconnects that already do that. So think about the Council of All Beings, for example, or the widening circle practice, in which we like step out of our human identity and try to take on other identities. So it's something that is happening. It's really interesting, and you will find some links in the chat just to give you some insights and ideas.
Beautiful. Yes. Thank you. And as she mentioned, there's a bunch of links in the chat. They're great resources to explore. And it's amazing to get to know each of you. And I feel like we learned so much in just the last 20 minutes. And now we're going to start to move into some reflection time and just like digesting what we've been learning. So we're going to pass it back to Martina for a little guided reflection.
Yes. Yes, we wanted to take a few moments just for a quick guided reflection and going through the spiral together. Also in preparation for the next part of this webinar. So we have listened to many things, information, thoughts. So maybe let's just take a few moments to go back to our bodies and to our breath after listening to all this information. So, yeah, let's take a few deep breaths. You can close your eyes if you want. And just take a moment to connect to your bodies, release any tension that you are feeling right now. Mm. And as we were saying before, the idea is to go through the spiral together. And we're going to start with gratitude, grounding ourselves in gratitude, first of all. So again, put in your attention on your breathing, on your beating heart, on your body. We can ground ourselves in gratitude for our breathing and for our bodies that are keeping us alive in this moment. So you can send some gratitude to your body, to your heart. And maybe you can extend that gratitude, send a little bit of gratitude, perhaps to the people who are part of your network, to the earth that is sustaining us, or to anything else that is important for you at this moment. And by sending this gratitude, thoughts, and feelings, I invite you to ground yourself, to feel this sense of grounding in gratitude. And with this grounding in our body, in gratitude, I invite you to go to the next step of the spiral. So I invite you to open your heart to something that pains you or worries you or that makes you angry, something in the world around us. And maybe there are many things that are coming up to your mind right now. So maybe just choose one for now, maybe the one that is catching your attention the most at the moment. So let's open our heart a little bit to this, to something that is worrying you, that is catching your attention, and let us give the permission to feel the pain a little bit. And if it becomes too much, just return to your breath, to gratitude, to our body, and ground yourself again. Well, yes, let's take a few breaths in honoring our pain for the world, and maybe let's just give permission to our hearts to break a little bit more, just a tiny bit. Because as Joanna used to say, the heart that breaks open can contain the whole universe. So let's stay in touch a little bit with this pain, because when we are in touch with and when we honor the pain for the world, we can remember that if we feel this pain, it is because there is something that we love deeply. And if we are angry, it is because we really care about something. So let's just continue to breathe. And I invite you to take a few moments to look for what really matters the most to you. What is that you care for? What is that you love deeply? And when you find it, hold it close to your heart. So that together with the pain, together with the anger, we can also see the love for something that really matters to us. And I invite you to hold on to this love just a few moments more. And holding on to this love, to the things that are really important for you, that really matter for you. I invite you to come back here with us slowly. You can open your eyes again when you feel ready. And you can reconnect with the room around you. Maybe look around, move a little bit. Slowly, slowly come back here to this webinar that we are holding together so that we can prepare for the next steps. So welcome back. And maybe, Joe, you can guide us to the next step.
Yeah, we're going to bring Dawn in for the next step.
Yeah, thank you, Martina. I found that particularly powerful with all the chaos that we're experiencing here in the United States right now, that so many have been dealing with for so long in many places around the world. Um, yeah, I just have a few words to say, a few reflections before we go into breakouts. One thing is picking up on what Anahi said about, people thinking of themselves as inner people or outer people, and needing to kind of break down that divide. Yeah, we may lean more in one direction than the other, but we're all inner and outer people. We all need both. And after we've gone through that spiral of recognizing all the blessings in our lives, looking at all the suffering in our world, and starting to see more possibilities for regeneration with new eyes. We can't help but try to go forth and be of some kind of service to the world. And it can be kind of overwhelming to think about that right now. With so many things that need to be done, we can't possibly do them all. But I think the key is really to find, where our passion lies, where in those four dimensions of the great turning, the holding actions and the Gaian structures and the paradigm shift and nurturing life, that we find a real passion, a real sense of connection, And we can use that to guide our actions. And I think if we can do that, if we can engage wholeheartedly in the work that we feel most called to do, then we won't feel that despair quite as heavy. Um, that we can when we know we're not doing all that we can. So I think that will lead us into our breakout rooms and breakout questions. And I'll pass it back to Joe for that.
Great. Oh, thank you so much, Don. So yeah, we're gonna move into breakout rooms. We'll be in groups of about 3 or 4 people, but it might depend, how the group gets divided up. Your room might have three, it might have four, it might only have two. But the room itself is gonna be 20 minutes, and we're gonna go in 2 rounds. So the first round will be for the first 10 minutes, and you can split the time up based on however many people are in your room to each take turns sharing um, responses to this first prompt that's in the chat there. What are some things that are currently happening in your local community that give you hope? So again, use that time, kind of share that time equally for the first 10 minutes so that everybody can share a little bit from their own community, something that's giving them hope. And then we'll send a prompt at the 10-minute mark so that you can shift to round two. I mean, sorry, round two. And then you'll be responding to the prompt. What are you doing, or what could you do to help cultivate a more just and regenerative future starting right where you live? So there should be a little timer marker in the top of your screen that shows you the 20 minutes. That'll help you kind of track, but we will send that prompt halfway through. And we just invite you to, co-facilitate the space in a way that makes it so that everybody can share. And you really get to listen to each other and touch in with, what is yours to do? What's going on in your community? Anything I missed there, Don? Or okay, great. And Rachel, are we all set with rooms? All right, here we go. Go enjoy your conversations. Great. And Rachel, you can pause the recording. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Here we are. I'm so curious. I'm sure there's a lot of good conversation in your various breakout rooms, and feel free to just start putting a couple little highlights in the chat so we can get a little peppering of hope and inspiration from different communities around the world. So if there's just something like a little nugget or a highlight that you want to share, you can throw that in the chat. And then we're going to move into some time where we get to connect with, whoever's here with us that wants to share a question or, engage with the panelists in some ways. So we're inviting you to raise your hand, your virtual hand, if you'd like to share or ask a question. And that's in your menu at the bottom. There should be a little symbol that says raise hand. And we'll take a little time to just connect with each other.
Sorry, my little
Something that's
chat box has gone to AI and doesn't appear to be able to put anything. I wanted to just jump in. I brought this up and this is a book a friend of mine wrote recently, Arlette O'Rourke. And
Can you read the title? Because we can't all
sure,
see it.
absolutely. Restoring the Signal, Regeneration, Survival, and Emergence as a Living System. And I've known this person since she was just about walking. I'm very proud and hopeful that people are thinking on this level. And thanks ever so much, Dawn. I know you and I have crossed paths down in Sarasota a time or two. But anyway, it's all good. Thanks, everybody, for being here and doing it and thinking these wonderful, hopeful, and futuristic positiveness.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody have a question for the panelists or a question about transition, about the movement? I'm curious,
I
maybe, okay. You got
I was just going to Google it, but does anybody do you know if there's a transition movement in the Asheville area?
That's sorry, I spotlighted the wrong guy. John, do we know if there's a
There,
transition?
John, there was a transition initiative here. Um, and Diane and us went to a couple of their meetings, but I don't think they're very active right now at all. I think they burnt out. Like, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
That could be started up again. Somebody else could relight the torch, and I'm sure the folks who were previously involved would be happy to help support that.
Yeah. If I could,
Great.
David Ketter.
Yes, yes, please.
Parallel to that, I volunteer for a new movement up here in the Pacific Northwest, and it's about regeneration, and it's a bioregionalism movement. Don, we've met before when you came through Bellingham. We gave your book talk. So wonderful to see you again. And so we're just getting going. We have a showcase this coming Thursday and Friday. If anybody's interested, I can throw a link in the chat if you are. But I'm particularly excited and enthused about this very topic we're talking about today, how to fuse the inner and the outer work. I've been trained with Joanna. I know her personally from living in Berkeley. And I've studied deep ecology, eco-psychology, and now we're doing this bioregionalism movement. And I am so hungry to really do what you were talking about today. And so you've given us a couple of articles and ways that we can truly listen to nature and bring its voice into our decision making. It's a high value of ours to listen to the land and let it take the lead in what we do. We have zero practices in how to do that. But council of all beings, other such things, I think will be useful overall. But thank you for sharing the resources you do. And if you have any other articles or examples, I would love that.
I don't know if there's a way to share additional resources in some other ways, because I would have to look them up. But for sure, there are other articles or examples that can be of inspiration for you.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, we'll be sending a follow-up email. So Martina, if you could get anything together by tomorrow, I could include it. And it also comes to mind that Phoebe Tickell is doing some great work around moral imagination and bringing the more than human voice into policy making decisions. And so I'll add a little link to her work in the follow-up email as well for you, David.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, is there anything else anybody else wants to say on that?
What are these little black boxes that show up with links to websites and things like that on them? Is there somewhere we can see those afterwards or connect to those afterwards?
Are you talking about what we're putting in the chat?
Oh, is that what it is? The chat?
Yeah, if you open your chat, you'll see all the links on the side, but I'll also include all of those in the follow-up email.
Oh, okay. All right, great.
Great.
And you can save what's in the chat to your own computer by clicking on the three little dots that are at the very top of the chat. And one of them will say save chat.
Yes. And Ruben, you're unmuted and your hand is raised, so come on in.
Thank you. And part of my background it has been dedicated to the kind of development of mental models that we need in order to do this work adequately. It's been noted that thinking of the language, that the work that Joanna and the work that reconnects, you know, talked about a kind of industrial late stage capitalism society. And we know that we're infected by it in all kinds of ways. And I don't know of as much work that's been done. It seems to me that overall, the sense that we're have been formed by forces that are unhealthy is reasonably strong, and we can identify a lot of that. And the sense of the future that we want is pretty articulate. And the knowledge that we need some kind of whatever language, great turning, whatever the great work is needed, but that work itself is less well exemplified in terms of mental models, that we're still using language of modernity, of inner and outer, which are, separate. They're not, it's not an integral language. So I'm just wondering, Dawn and others, whether part of your work or part of the work of others who might be interested in looking over your shoulder has been to help us develop mental models that better describe what it is that we actually are doing in the how do we move through this great turning, because that seems to me to be a hole in our deal.
Great. Anaí, I see you have a response. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that question. And I could speak hours. It's one of my passions. And I believe, Ruben, that in my language, more than mental models, what is creating the transformation is an experience that is the mind plus the body plus the emotion plus the context plus the interpersonal. And once I heard one of my teachers saying to explain, in Spanish we have a word that is vivencia. I don't find a translation for this vivencia that is like experience, but it's an experience that have a strong meaning, that because of the strong meaning, it lasts beyond time. And the way to explain this of this teacher was, if you experience once the divine, whatever name, God, the goddess, the divine, the oneness, the interconnection, the non-duality, once for 20 seconds, you experience this in your life and you will believe in that forever. And this is what I believe we need to experience. And I understand that all these like eco-villages, centers of permaculture, and centers of spirituality are places in which human beings can experience the human potential that we were not taught we have. And this is the model for transformation, and is to create spaces to experience ourselves in a different way. And in my experience, when I am really connected in a community, it's like invisible threads move us. And you meet in a corner with the person that needs to tell you exactly where some tool is, or a specific thing of the wound of your father. Like whatever level of experience you're having, if you're connected, there is a magic that guides us. And when we live this, and many people live that, once don't share me like these bubbles of health or islas de cordura. I don't know how to say that in English. Bubbles of health or islands of health.
Yeah.
These places are places of transformation. And this model is the model for me for the future. And I stop there. I see Don wants to share. Mhm.
Thank you.
Well, just to add to that, I think that there are a lot of great organizations out there mapping the space of transformation. Not just Transition Network, which I think has done a pretty phenomenal job of that, with the organizing model and all these stories of successful projects that could be replicated in other places. But other organizations like one that comes to mind is Shareable, Post Carbon Institute, various permaculture networks. Yeah, there's tons of them out there. You just got to look for them because they're not gonna come to you, through mainstream media or through popular culture. They're still very much below the radar. But I think ultimately, we need to make our path by walking it. The like trying to figure out everything in advance, I don't think it's possible to get a perfect model and then just implement that. That seems like very old kind of machine paradigm to me. That we're somehow able to just kind of formulate the perfect solution, come up with a blueprint, and then just implement it. I think it's a much more organic process that we have to kind of dive into the process of being with life and being in community and searching together for solutions, and that's where the learning and the growth comes. So yeah, I think mental models are important, but I wouldn't stop that from just getting involved and being in the beautiful messiness of all of it.
I'm intrigued that you have assumed, both of you assumed that you understood what I meant by a mental model. You both made a perfectly normal modern assumption. And so let me just name it. So one of the things we need is a mental model that this kind of thing can happen and to watch for it in our conversation. And so all I'm saying is we need to be careful as we talk with each other that we actually understand and don't simply project onto the other. Anyway, enough said.
Good point.
But I hope, in a sense, my point is made that we don't yet have models that are alive enough that help us in a day-to-day way identify. The women's movement has helped a lot in terms of modern males. I say that as a modern privileged white male, because they've become quite articulate about the specific kinds of things, but how those things actually reflect a mindset and a consciousness. And we haven't done that with modernity. We're still talking in broad kinds of ways about late state capitalism and modernity without the kind of power, therefore, that the women's movement has brought to men. We don't, in my experience, and I'm familiar with every group you've mentioned. I'm familiar with them. And it strikes me that much as extraordinary things are being done at a personal level, that we are not yet at a stage that there is the kind of deep understanding culturally in terms of the broadest cultures of modernity that we can speak to. And I'm not in any way against the kind of practical, local kinds of things that happen. It's part of my life and has been. But there's something that we're missing that that I don't think we've even identified very well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
would like to move on. We've got a couple minutes left, so we'll bring Nick in.
Hi, folks. Well, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's a big label come on my screen that I don't understand. I love Vivencia. When Don was talking, I couldn't stop myself thinking about praxis, a word that I haven't come across much recently, but seems to fit what you're saying. And I think all that I want to say, because I'm aware that time is against. I mean, I could say a lot, but it's very nice to reconnect with all you folks, and particularly because I think there is some real. I've noticed some real dramatic progress over the last couple of years, which is exemplified in this meeting. I hadn't really understood that we were going to be talking about the convocation of animals and things like that in this meeting, but I'm delighted to find that we are, because in a strange way, and I did mention this in my small group as well, that has actually become part of the lived reality of my neck of the woods, which is part of Western industrial civilization, and in fact centers on the pollution of our local river by a major multinational. So we've got all the bad actors are involved in this, but we've got some amazingly good actors coming forward and bringing this kind of new spiritually informed work right to the forefront of even local decision makers and local councils, which I think is really quite revolutionary. I was one of those people who was in and out of Totnes in 2007, 2008. I live a couple of hours north of Totnes. I haven't renewed my association with that much in recent years, but I do like to stay in touch. I've always had the highest regard for everybody associated with Transition Network, and today's a good sort of verification for that. I do want to mention one thing, which is, and I think it relates to Vivencia. I think it relates to some of the discussion about inner outer and modernity and these sorts of things. I just want to big up what I'm going to refer to as SAND, and I guess people here probably know SAND, science and non-duality, which I found quite exciting in this context, bringing together the lived reality of First Nations peoples around the world, which I think has a heck of a lot to do with what we're talking about here. And I would imagine that most of the people in this grouping know what I'm referring to, but I could be completely wrong about that. If you don't know what I'm referring to, then I would find that quite interesting, because I think there is some huge potential in crossing over between what we've understood for years in the transition network, maybe as inner and outer work. I think that probably was a nomenclature that we used, versus what is being brought to the table by the kinds of people who are interacting with the SAND projects. So I won't go on, because I'm sure other people want to get their 6 months worth in. I'll just leave it there for now. But it's all pretty exciting, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Nick. I'd love to hear from Jenlyn.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you for this opportunity and for hearing the stories. I'm really jazzed. And I loved your reference to play. And this whole thing about, feeling and being in it is just so exciting. So thank you. And I wondered if you've had, I know it's called Transition Towns, Network of Towns. Do you have the experience of towns interrelating? Do you have the experience of working with towns that are in a similar biodiverse area? And specifically, I wonder if you're in the Southwest at all, if you have presence in Southwest US, Arizona, New Mexico, that kind of thing. And I know for me personally, we have, in the state of Arizona, we have cities, Tucson, Phoenix, Tempe, and that's where the universities are. Mm. And also up in northern Arizona. Mm. And what's happened over time is that these declarations of climate emergencies has helped groups plan and engage, because we have football and basketball, we have ways of disconnecting, of being rivals. And what I'm seeing now is real promise in people coming together around the climate and around, and especially right now around immigration and around who do we want to be and how do we want to be. And I just wondered if you've had the experience of working with towns that are in the network, but helping them connect with each other. Does that make sense?
Very much so. Not much happening right now in the southwestern US around transition specifically. There used to be really strong initiatives in Albuquerque, Joshua Tree, California, several other places. I'm not aware of anything happening right now, but I'm sure there's a lot of transition-like stuff that's happening where you are if you look around. Um, Transition initiatives frequently collaborate with each other. We have these regional and national hubs in different areas that help to facilitate that. And it's not just towns. Very often, in larger cities like London, there'll be a number of different transition initiatives that are focused on different neighborhoods, but then they'll work together as London as a whole. And likewise, in some more rural areas, um, yeah, um, that happens quite a bit. And I do think that the bioregional movement has been coming back in force in the last few years. What they mentioned about Regenerate Cascadia earlier, and that whole Regenerate network and design school for regenerating Earth. There's some really powerful things happening there.
I'm really appreciating the reference to permaculture. I see that as a way of really pulling different people together. And also, I don't know if you're familiar with this, and I don't know if you can see it. It's called, no.
Oh yeah,
anyway,
Presencing.
the Presencing Institute, and talking about their, very exciting.
Thanks. I would love to just bring Anna in. She's one of our lovely, beloved facilitator members of the Work That Reconnects network. And so we don't have a ton of time left, but come on in and then we'll wrap it up.
Thanks, Joe. Nice to see you. Thanks so much, everybody. Yeah, I don't think you'll be able to answer this in 3 minutes, but I feel really inspired by the transition network and the movement, and like it's been referenced a few times about some initiatives kind of falling away or not being as successful, and I'm just wondering, like, I fully intend to go do a lot of my own research. I'm in a small town in Ireland, just for reference, in the West, but I'm wondering if any of you might have are there things that you can identify that help, certain initiatives to be successful more than others? Like what's important? And I know that's going to vary a lot depending on place, and it's a big question, but are there certain things that you've seen that really make a difference that maybe don't happen in the places where because I know I'm so familiar, I know we all are, with people being tired and burnt out and overwhelmed, and it's hard to keep up these things. So yeah,
I could jump in and answer the last two questions together, and maybe, and in my experience, Anna, is relationships and love, friendship, belonging. These are the things that I see that keep people together. In the south of Abya Yala in Latin America, we have 5 hubs, and we have a lot of connection between people that don't see much each other presentially, sometimes never. But the connection and the awareness that we belong to a wider movement that is carrying life gives such a purpose that is like a sisterhood, that brings us together beyond the projects we are doing. And also, because we're doing projects together, we see each other often. So it's kind of, again, both sides. This is what I could say. I don't know if Martina wants to share something.
Yeah, just quickly in my experience with this kind of groups, also another aspect is paying attention to how we relate to each other, a little bit as Anahi was saying, but also, for example, how we make decisions together, how we organize ourselves, how we transform conflicts, because conflicts will arise sooner or later. But if we have also some practical tools and a little bit of facilitation skills, for example, that really helps in terms of how the group can be more effective in their activities. And I think that on the website of Transition Network website, there are some resources about that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect question to end on. And Don, would you like to, do you have like a response that we can kind of wrap this up with?
Yeah, I think the interpersonal stuff is really important, as Anahi and Martina both said. I'm going to put some more resources to connect with Transition Network and learn more. One that I'd really encourage people, if they're looking to go deeper with this, is we have a new evergreen version of our introductory training that's free for anyone to take anywhere in the world. It's fully translatable into 70 languages. You can take it at your own pace. You don't have to do everything, but it's a great thing to check out. And I think that kind of training, which does emphasize a lot the interpersonal, the inner, is important for getting off on the right foot and having the confidence to launch something new in your local community.
Wow. Excellent. I would love it if you could put a link to that in the chat so that we can share that. Thank you so much. I am going to bring us to a close here. Jane, I see your hand up and we do need to wrap up. So I want to thank Anai and Martina and Don for all the work you do in the world and for all the ways in which you've dedicated your life to transition into the great turning and to the cultivation of wellness in your communities and weaving all the webs across the world with each other. And thank you for being here today, for sharing with our network and to sharing all that you've shared with us today. I mean, the list of resources that I've collected that are going to go in the follow-up email is alone a volume. So, so I think we all, beyond what we've learned here, we have a lot more that we can dive into and continue kind of not only studying but engaging with in our communities. And as we wrap up, I want to invite all the participants here to let us know how this experience was for you and to share with us through our feedback survey that Rachel's putting in the chat so that we can understand what worked well and what could work better. That's always in our interest. And I want to let you know that because there's so much to this conversation and to this exploration, we are going to be hosting a conversation cafe on Saturday on the 7th called Co-Creating a Life-Sustaining Future. This is going to be a more free-form conversation, a dialogue, a kind of unstructured, time for us to be together and reflect and explore both our insights from this webinar, but also from the Rob Hopkins one. So when you sign up for that Conversation Cafe, you'll get a link to the recording of the previous webinar and actually a couple of others that we did in the fall that tie into this concept. So if you want to keep talking and you want to have some space to, work out some of your thoughts and ideas and listen to others and connect with others, we invite you to come to the Conversation Cafe on Saturday. And we just thank you so much for joining us in the Work That Reconnects Network webinar and Conversation Cafe program. And if you're not already, we invite you to become a community member of the Work That Reconnects Network so you can continue to engage and be with us. Great. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
all you do.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Lots of love, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Big hug. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for joining us today. To learn more about the Work That Reconnects webinars and Conversation Cafe program, please visit our website at workthatreconnects.org. We welcome you to become a community member of the Work That Reconnects network. Visit workthatreconnects.org, become a member for more information.